workshops. I know a lot of my colleagues in the area have wonderful hearts, have supported people very well over the years, and they believe that if you get rid of sub-minimum wage, that a lot of people with disabilities are going to lose employment opportunities. So the states who have done it, is there research behind? I know it's going to happen. You get rid of it, something else is going to take its place, and that's going to be better integrated opportunities for people. But to have that conversation with people, is there research that you can point to?
There is, and I'm really glad you asked that question. And first, I want to give the caveat that says, if you do it wrong, just like anything, there is a risk. So, you know, in all of the proposals we've made about sub-minimum wage and eliminating it, you know, I think the most ambitious has talked about doing it over on a 3-year phase-out period. You know, I think nobody has talked about doing it overnight because you want to give time for providers to change their business model and for people to find new jobs and for people to get access to new support. So I think we're very cognizant of that concern, and you know, at the end of the day, many people call us radical. Personally, I think we're very pragmatic. You know, in terms of the research literature, I'll name a couple of things. First, the Institute for Community Inclusion at the University of Massachusetts, Boston has done spectacular work, not only on, you know, the issue of supported employment, but also some of the real details about how you accelerate this transition. John Butterworth's research on rate setting, Medicaid rate setting for supported employment is just a joy to read. I encourage it. And there's a lot of other good stuff. Robert Chimera at Kent State University has done some excellent research tracking the experiences of people with disabilities who went straight into supported employment versus the experiences of people with disabilities who went into sheltered workshops and then went into supported employment. And what he found was that people who go to sheltered workshops first tend to have lower earnings even after they leave them and cost more to serve. So that kind of debunks the idea of sheltered workshops as preparation for real jobs. Really, you know, the research does not support that. Finally, I would point out a couple additional resources. The Association for the Promotion of Supported Employment, APSE, has a lot of great stuff on this. APSE actually runs in Vermont a conversion institute for sheltered workshop providers that want to move into supported employment and figure out how to close their workshop and support people in integrated settings. The National Association of State Directors of Developmental Disability Services also runs a community of practice for states that want to accelerate this transition called the State Employment Leadership Network.
Does anybody know when do you think California is going to be phasing out shelter workshop?
I don't, and I think that's going to depend on the kind of advocacy we see over the course of the next few years. We're looking forward to working with people like you and people in this room to make that happen. There's a lot of work to be done. California has a lot of sheltered workshops.
We're state divided for sure over that issue. And how to phase it out, and so we don't have leadership at the higher levels talking about phasing that out yet.
I'm going to, before I leave here, leave my email address. I'll put it up on that whiteboard. So anybody who wants to contact me on that issue should feel free. The gentleman in the back with the glasses.
Yeah. Are you doing any kind of outreach to people in human resources on how to interview? With an unemployment rate of 85%, I think basically people on the autism spectrum are simply being screened out by the HR people because they don't have the social skills. And I'll give two examples that that are not autism. One is one was I heard from Manu, who's up in Alaska, who was trying to get a kid who's a Native American into an engineering program. He was screened out from the university program because he didn't have proper social skills, which is absolutely nuts. why does an engineer need social skills and administrative and all the proper courses? And the second one was a headhunter, an executive recruiter, carefully explaining that if you hesitated when they asked you a question, then obviously you were either lying or you had something to hide, and what it could more likely with anybody with a on the spectrum or with a central processing disorder would have a delay, either because they're not thinking fast because of the central processing, or because they have a delay in memory recall. So those are liars, get rid of them. And so my question is, what are you doing to talk to the HR people?
A couple of things, and that's an excellent question. It's a great description of the problem. First, we run a pilot program that we are hoping to expand with Freddie Mac, the housing finance company in Washington, D.C., where Freddie Mac commits to hiring a certain number of paid interns. At the moment, it's about 5 a year. We're trying to expand it for next year, this year, which is our third year of the program, on the autism spectrum. And we work to train Freddie Mac hiring managers, interviewers, and supervisors on accommodating autistic people. We provide some training to the interns as well. I'm proud to say that some of the interns who have participated in our program have been offered full-time permanent employment with Freddie Mac. And these are good jobs. You know, these are well-paying jobs with benefits. You know, from our perspective, we think that's an interesting model. If we have other employers that want to partner with us, particularly in the DC area, we'd be very interested in exploring that. I think one of the challenges we face is that there are not really good funding streams for supporting that work, and very often employers are very reluctant to make the kind of commitment that Freddie Mac has. So we want to see that kind of thing replicated. So far, it's been focused on that single company. A couple of other things we've done, just to name a few, is we have occasionally worked with the Job Accommodation Network, which is a technical assistance entity for employers and accommodations. And we have tried, with mixed success, to lobby the Employment Equal Opportunity Commission to issue guidance on common accommodations in employment for autistic adults. We're also very concerned, and we think this is something that probably an entity with greater litigation capacity than ours needs to take on, but we're very concerned about the proliferation of personality tests as part of the pre-employment screening process. There's a lot of evidence, and I see a lot of nodding here. I think many people have experienced this themselves, that many of the personality tests that employers, particularly a lot of these big box retail stores, but a growing amount of others are applying, screen out autistic people, people with other neurological disabilities, and people with psychiatric disabilities.
How do you feel about Strength Finders? There's a guy down in San Diego, who's using Strength Finders with level 2 people, ASD folks.
I'm not familiar with Strength Finders.
Okay,
so
it's the one you put out by Gallup. Okay, but I certainly understand what you mean with it. Okay, maybe we can talk more about this later.
Sure, I have to go to another training after this, but I will make sure to put my contact information on the whiteboard before I leave.
Is it on ASAN's website too?
It is, yes.
Okay.
And ASAN's website, so everybody knows, is www.autisticadvocacy.org. I'll put that up over there too. I think I've still got a fair amount of time though.
So what's next, do you think, for here in California, or what's next that you think that we should be aware of for this year?
I believe that the great challenge of the self-advocacy movement and the neurodiversity movement over the course of the next few years is how do we build state and local infrastructure. The autistic community has been very successful at building a large online presence, and the online autistic community is critically important But at the end of the day, people live in their local communities, and policy is set, generally speaking, at the state level. There are a lot of things that only state government can play a role in, and there are a lot of things that only local communities can develop. And so we need to be figuring out, how do we support autistic self-advocates to develop some of the critical skills in areas that don't seem that sexy, but are really important. You know, meeting facilitation, fundraising, nonprofit management, systems change advocacy, which seems a little bit sexier, but often isn't. You know, policy advocacy, policy knowledge, community organizing. We're hoping the Pacific Alliance will help with that. But I think, you know, a lot of it is going to come down to people right here and in communities all around the country deciding to just step up and try something. That's why I'm really glad we've got the folks in ASA and Sacramento, you know, who have got the ball rolling in this local community, and you know, we're looking forward to continuing to work with them. Chelsea.
What do you think universities should do to create a more inclusive community?
First, we would love to see the color communication badge system begin to catch on in universities. If any of you are at a university and are interested in helping making that happen, we'd be glad to provide resources explaining the system. We also have two university-based books. One is called Navigating College, which is a guide to succeeding in higher education, written by and for autistic students. The other, newer, it's called Empowering Leadership, and it's for college students with disabilities writ large, and it's about campus organizing and systems change. They're both available for order on Amazon or for free in PDF online. So I encourage you to check it out in either format. And if you check it out for free and you like it, maybe go leave a review on Amazon. You know, up to you.
Like universities, like everybody's an adult, and you know, people aren't going to just go to these autism groups if they're not encouraged to go. And we've been trying to set things up, but they got dismantled really quickly because we couldn't get enough people to go.
It's been my experience, and we've run a leadership academy specifically for autistic college students on how to develop these kinds of systems change work. But it's been my experience that if you want to get students, and really people in general, this isn't unique to campuses, but if you want to get people to come, you got to pick an issue that energizes them.
Something that attracts them, something that appeals.
Maybe not sell it off as being like a social skills group. That's one of the problems I felt about the group that they were selling, is people have bad experiences with those in grade school.
Exactly. No, people come together when they have hope or when they have fear. So you need an issue that speaks to one, the other, or both. We were talking earlier about a new policy that eliminated priority registration for some students with disabilities in California's community college system. And I think that's an issue that might bring a lot of people out of the woodwork in that system and to engage in activism. There are other examples. In Ohio State, we had a chapter there for some time that was started because the Autism Speaks chapter in Ohio State was putting out a lot of really offensive things about autistic people. And so when the self-advocates, when the autistic students at Ohio State complained about it, not only did they not change what they were doing, the Autism Speaks student leaders went to I think it was the psychology department, and told them to try and control the autistic students. Needless to say, that got a lot of people really mad and led to the establishment of a pretty successful protest and a growing autistic self-advocate community in their university group, in the Columbus, Ohio area. So, I try and think, what's going to get people energized? What's going to get people thinking, I really need to step up and do something? Does that answer your question? And I hope you'll be in touch. You know how to reach me. If love to talk more about what we could do to help support your work on campus.
Is there